If you listen carefully, at the end, you'll be someone else. Early 1944, Europe. A young soldier runs through a forest. The terrified look on his face tells that he's been through a lot, as if he's been back and forth into hell. He sees nothing but his own legs as he keeps fleeing as fast as he can, keeping his head down and his teeth tightly clenched. The soldier keeps running downhill until he trips over a root. The first impact on the ground brings a sour taste into his mouth, and everything before him turns black. He rolls downwards and keeps rolling until he blacks out. As he regains his senses, the young man realizes he's in a completely different place. He's surrounded by a warm atmosphere, and the smell in the air reminds him of a fireplace. He is completely disoriented about his whereabouts. He can't even tell how much time he's been there. Yet, he feels strangely calm, mentally oblivious to everything that he went through on the battlefield, as if he'd just awakened from a long nightmare, whose horrors were easy to forget. Everything he knows about the Germans, every battle he fought, all the voices of his companions and the hatred-filled faces of his enemies. Everything was swallowed by this new feeling of peace. While looking around him, he discovers he woke up inside a comfy-looking house with a lit fire. Everything is made of wood, even the walls and the roof. There are no windows, ornaments, photos, or any other hint of people living there. Suddenly, a fresh, spicy smell invades the room. Next to him, on the table, steams a cup of tea. The thirst hits him deeply, like his soul was in need of something warm to vanish away the cold and suffering. But only at the sight of the cup did he realize the feeling. The young man picks it up without thinking much about it and lays down on a sofa. Am I in heaven? He thinks. Is this what heaven looks like? There is no trace of his wounds, nor even the pain in his leg he'd gotten used to after an accident in a trench. His uniform is now clean and new. Everything seems too much off its place. He gets lost in his thoughts, his hands around the cup, as he begins to feel drowsy again. His eyes wander around the room, lazily, when a voice speaks very close to his ear. How do you feel? He hears as if someone was sitting right next to him. Startled, he looks around, till he finds what looks like an old lady, sitting in a chair, in the farthest corner of the room. The soldier gets up immediately, babbling quick apologies while the lady laughs and nods with her head, like she was expecting precisely that. She looks really old. Every one of her facial expressions creates new wrinkles on her face, like an ancient map that rolls over itself, over and over again. She's wearing an elegant, yet old-fashioned dress, and her white hair falls over her shoulders. Every single detail in her is pleasing, except for her smile. A happy, but disturbing grin that seems out of place in her. After a few seconds of being in silence and holding their gaze, he starts to feel like there's something eerie and unpleasant about her. "Who are you? Where am I?" he asks. The lady doesn't answer. She just keeps grinning and looking at him, like she's expecting something. After a moment, she looks away to his left, to the corner of the room, as a second voice is heard. "Doesn't really matter where you are, young lad. All that matters is that you're finally safe," says an old man who seems to have just appeared from nowhere, like the lady. He's dressed in a similar way, although he seems more lively. His expression looks genuinely at peace, and he has bright eyes. No trace of the lady's cynicism can be found in him. After giving the soldier a quick smile, he sits down looking at him as if they were well-known friends. Something about him inspires trust. The soldier soon finds himself relaxing and exchanging a brief conversation with the old man, like two old companions who are used to seeing each other every day. After a while, he starts talking without stopping to think of the consequences. He only knows that he has never seen these people before, but the more he speaks to them, the more comfortable he feels. The old couple remains silent as he expresses his anger and sadness about the death of his family, executed by German soldiers. Soon, he finds himself telling them about his childhood. He goes back in the past until he starts to talk about his parents, about how his life was before the beginning of the conflicts that led into that war. With every word, the young man feels like he's being emptied of the anguish and helpless feelings with which he's learned to live. When he makes a pause, feeling that he has no more words to say, the couple gets up. "You've had a long day, lad. You should try to get some sleep now," says the old man. He doesn't know exactly how late it is, but as soon as he thinks of a bed, a heavy feeling of tiredness falls over him. Suddenly, every day of that long war seems to pull down over his shoulders. He lays his head and falls asleep immediately. He wakes up startled. The clock is giving midnight noisily. Something in the atmosphere has changed, and the soldier can feel a cold chill running down his spine. He feels really awake, but lays still for a moment, trying to breathe, as the air in the room seems to get colder and colder. Suddenly, a hand rests on his head, making his heart stop for a second. He quickly turns and sees the old man standing to his side. "Come here, quick," he whispers, with a look of urgency in his face. The soldier gets up and rubs his eyes. He opens his mouth to ask a question as he turns to the old man, only to discover that he is alone in the room. He starts to look around, trying to see something in the darkness, when the lady's voice is heard from afar. "Come here, come here," she keeps repeating. He extends his arms, trying to find his way through the room while struggling to find the lady. Nothing makes sense at all, but he can't think of anything else to do. The voice keeps repeating itself, increasingly insistent, till the young man finds a door that wasn't there before. He opens it to find himself before a long flight of stairs that leads to another room in which a dim light shines. As he approaches, the voice gets louder and louder. "Come closer. Come to me," it keeps repeating, sounding at times distorted, like it was heard through an old radio. The soldier feels uneasy, but soon he discovers he can't help but do as the voice tells him. He keeps going downstairs, till he arrives in the room. The guiding light he saw comes from a circle of candles in the ground. In the middle of it, a strange, geometrical figure drawn with salt is seen, even with the lack of light. Before knowing what he is doing, the young soldier enters the circle, and then the voice fades away. His heart beats so strongly that it seems like a frightened animal. He can't think rationally. All he feels is a sense of horror, finding himself surrounded by an abnormal darkness and the strange circle. As he looks around, trying to regain control of his body, the lady appears before him. Her grin seems even more sarcastic now, making her look even younger and dangerous. She walks a few steps towards him, entering the circle. "Get away from me, you demon!" he yells as high and as loud as he can. As before, the old lady just nods and laughs. "Is that so?" she asks. "Am I the demon?" She keeps laughing, while the soldier hears footsteps coming down the staircase. "Then I presume this is God?" she asks, laughing harder and harder as the old man approaches the soldier from behind and enters in his eyesight. "Look at him. Boy, is this the Lord you've been praying to? The one whom you prayed for keeping your family safe?" The Lord that gave you strength when the night seemed full of horrors." The soldier turns to the old man, speechless. "They are safe," he says at last. "But it was surely regrettable that they had to die." And suddenly, after hearing this, all of the fear and the anger the soldier used to feel seemed to come back to his heart with recovered forces. The desperate feelings of impotence, of not being able to do anything at all to change the course of the war, of not being able to protect his loved ones. All of the hatred he felt comes back to him. "This demon, you say, wants to offer you a second chance. Is there anything you want from us?" "Kill them," the young soldier yells, as soon as he understands what they're talking about. "Kill them all. Bring them down. Every single one of them." His thoughts aren't rational anymore. The old man nods, silently, with a look of resignation. As a response to this, the lady grabs his hand, laughing again. "I told you there are consequences in war, dear lord," she tells him. The young soldier remains silent, feeling himself a stranger in his own heart. He tells himself that this is not what he really wanted, not at all. But also, as the lady's eyes encounter him, he understands that a part of him just wants the war to be over at any cost. The single fact of having to bear the death of his family has fueled his resolution for killing the ones responsible. As the candle's fire dies, the lights around them begin to fade, and only a pair of red eyes can be seen. The whole basement seems to be in a dense, profound darkness as the lady screams. "And what will you give us in exchange?" "You have to give something important, so the devil can grant you a wish. Maybe one of your eyes?" Her voice seems to purr with satisfaction. He closes his eyes for the briefest moment, thinking of the death of his family, and then nods his head. He would give anything they ask. Suddenly, an unknown force lifts his body and pushes him against a wall. The old man approaches the soldier and gently puts his hands on his shoulders, holding him still while the lady materializes from the shadows and raises a strangely curved knife. The soldier closes his eyes against his will, without being able to open them to watch the knife, as he feels its cold blade getting closer. The pain is terrible, more than anything he could have imagined. Not only his head, but his entire body ignites in a flame of pain, making every past wound seem like a scratch. After a moment that seems like an eternity, everything stops. The soldier finds himself on his knees with his head down, feeling the warm touch of his blood falling over his hand. But something has changed. He can't explain to himself what this strange feeling of power comes from. Like, if nothing around him was unreachable and he had full control over his movements and emotions. As if everything was possible. Even the darkness feels at his hand. He can tell exactly what the room looks like, even though he can't see it. Even his body feels lighter. He stands up, only to discover that the couple has disappeared. He runs upstairs and finds himself in a common room, very similar to the one where he had slept. But with windows in it, everything seems normal. When the young man approaches the window, he sees the outside field. The moon is rising in a clear sky, and some lonely trees are spread around the house. In the distance, a dog can be heard barking, but something has changed. Everything has a curious, weak glow. He sees everything from a new point of view. Every object, everything, and every concept now appears to be clear to his eye and mind. Weeks later, an army of French soldiers arrive in Normandy upon hearing the plan for the upcoming attack. The preparations for taking back their motherland had begun a year ago, and they were assigned to one of the small beaches. As they prepare themselves for disembarking, everything seems way too calm. They were expecting counterfire, explosions, and screams, but everything is silent. They get prepared to execute the orders and finally touch land, but then they find themselves upon a desolate view. The sand is covered with blood, and the beach shows the signs of a recent battle. Dead bodies are scattered through the place. Nothing moves. Not even the wind blows. While they inspect the area, one of the soldiers starts to scream, telling his captain he's found a survivor. Everyone gathers around him. In his arms, they see a young German with some bad wounds, asking for water while trying to breathe. The captain appears, demanding to know what happened. A few minutes later, the German manages to explain some strange facts. He tells them that a strange man appeared from nowhere that morning wearing a black cape. He had a strange white face and a patch over one of his eyes. Despite his hood, a calm, empty look could be seen in his only eye, like he was used to the slaughter he was causing. Near the end of this tale, the soldier started to cry, and a few moments later, he was dead. The soldiers retreat for the next day, trying to figure out what really happened. A few days later, the news of the battle on the other shore arrives. The Battle of Normandy was a success. The liberation of France had begun. Still, no other army reported any strange facts. History books don't mention anything about this, but the veteran soldiers tell that the mysterious figure of the black hooded soldier appeared in other important events during World War II. In many different battles, raids, and attacks, soldiers talked about a strange man fighting with them or even solo. He is mentioned in the male massacre, although several women were already killed before he got himself involved in the event. Many of them reported a strange figure with superhuman strength that appeared from nowhere and quickly left. Even during the 20th July plot, some agents claimed that the strange soldier was the one who tried to murder the Führer, sneaking into enemy territory. The stories tell that he got captured by the Gestapo, but fled shortly after. Soon, the reports of a missing young soldier that fled into a forest in the middle of a battle came to be public knowledge. And so the legend is born. Ever since then, like any other legend, the rumors and stories continued to grow. Still, no mention of him is heard after the end of the war. Some people say that he never existed, and that he's only the people's wish for a hero, something to believe in. Others say that he is directly involved every time something unusual happens in any part of the world. They imagine him in other conflicts, always where the peace needs him most. Finally, there are people that think that, after the war, he returned to fulfill an oath, to pay an ultimate price before vanishing in the pages of history.